Well, I'm based out of San Francisco, and it so happens that the flight yesterday was planned. So it's a nice different set up at 5 o'clock this morning. It's 3 o'clock Pacific time. So if I'm even more incoherent than normal, accept my apologies. But I really appreciate you letting me come here. That we set out to try to build a slightly different service. I spent about a decade in mobile banking payments. And I feel like the last 7 years I've been trying to atone for my sins. We managed to take a perfectly good banking or credit union member relationship, and we managed to move people out of the branches. We managed to get people, we gave people the ability to deposit a check from home, which I think is fantastic. I like to do that. The flip side suddenly became now we have given people all the tools they need to serve people from home. What we don't get to talk about. John was talking about before. When I walk into the branch and I have a transaction to do, I'll come up, I'll wait for John because it's like he understands finance and he gets my background. He knows that I have I have my 14-year-old twins. He kind of knows the whole story. So I'll do whatever I need to do, and then John will go, by the way, how are the kids doing? Are they in high school now? Yeah, they are. Well, they'll be driving about a year, won't they? And I go, yeah, they will. And at that point, John already knows I'm going to buy a new car in the future. Also, I'm thinking really about college now. How am I going to pay for twins going to college? I don't think I can count on getting a scholarship. That'll be nice, but it's not going to happen. So, what do we actually do then? I think those conversations were really useful in not hard selling. John didn't walk up to me and say, "Son, do you want a credit card? You want a credit card?" No, he listened to me, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen to me, understand who I am, build a trusted relationship. And when I need something, have the conversation. John became my go-to guy. If I had thought about replacing my water heater or thought about buying a new car, what would I do? Well, hey, John, you know the story. I'm replacing my water heater. What would I do? Is it a heater? Is it a personal line of credit? Tell me what I should be doing. And the whole purpose of ABCD was to try to recreate that relationship. You may have seen some of the early ideas. I did some of this work about 7 years ago, initially at Umpqua Bank. So, you know Umpqua Bank?
Yep.
So they're kind of an interesting bank. Their former CEO, Ray Davis, has written a couple of interesting books.
Yes.
He took over the bank when they were 5 branches and 120 million in profits. 2 years later, there were 26 billion and 320 branches. And Ray did some things. He doubled down on what can we compete on. And early on, he was like, relationship. We're 120 million, so we're not going to compete on price, product, or presence. So what can we compete on? He started the first cafe in 1995. He built an Umpqua branch where you could walk in and take a cup of go on American online. You could grab a cup of Umpqua coffee, and nobody will come bother you. If you wanted help, you could go to the back branch. There'll be a couple of sellers, but they'll never come up to you. When I met Ray, say 7, 8 years ago, like, well, that worked really well. It's not a competitive differentiator anymore. Used to be people caught up. And we all know ING for the cafes, even though they only came out in 2010. So quite a lot later. And Ray's point was, if we don't figure out how to translate this thing that we have done in person, if we don't figure out how to translate that digitally, we're going to be better. Because we are never going to outspend Chase. But last year, Chase spent 14 billion on technology. Now, I'm not saying they're efficient. We could probably do a lot more with 14 billion. That's it, 14 billion, 14 billion. They're going to do a lot. So trying to fight Bank of America, Chase, well, the big guys on technology and capabilities, maybe not the right answer. Why don't we fight them on what we're really good at? And then there's this idea, why is it people come to credit? Well, it's because they want a different experience. So they want to be able to go in and say, hey, John's my guy. He's not going to sell me on something. He's not going to sell me a subprime mortgage or whatever it may be. It's a guy I trust. I want a different experience. And if you take that, you can figure out how to utilize that. We think that would be a really valuable experience. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to take a couple of quick slides And then I'd love to explain to you. I'd love to just show what the platform looks like. I'll share the experience from a member, from an associate, and also a bit from management. And I would love to do native interaction if possible. Don't be shy about telling me if you don't understand my accent. You're the first, you're not gonna be the last. But also just ask questions and stuff in the time. What you are going to see is we use quite a lot of AI. I met Slam Bilak, Asian IT CEO, about 7 years ago or so. And Slam had just left from being the head of Google Cloud AI program, he was with Google for 12 years. And I kind of anticipated that I would not like Slam, because I kind of like people. And Slam was the AI guy who just goes, we don't need people anymore, AI will do it. And during our first adult beverage, Islam said down, hey, Islam, forget artificial intelligence. Think about augmented intelligence. This is not about replacing people, but there's so many facets to human emotions that we've tried for years to say, well, this is what, people want to do this online. Well, nobody's people. It may be John is happy to do it by himself, so on himself. We should let people decide. So Slav's vision was, if we took the human personal relationship and we augmented with AI. And I'll be showing you that in the platform. We use AI in 4 different tiers. The one we all know, the chatbot. And I'll show you how we use that. I think that's can be really important if you do it correct. If you set it up as we're not trying to hide the human, but if we set it up as Soren can get the routing number at 2 a.m. in the morning without having to talk to somebody. Again, don't hide the human, I'll show you that. But the second and third tier is what I actually think is a lot more exciting. The second tier is when you start helping the associates. So then again, I'm going to pick a lot of you on John. I'm good bad with
I'm good with it.
That's, but imagine John comes in and says, hey, Soren, I'm interested in buying a car. Your organization has lots of materials and documents about that. Why wouldn't you have AI suggest, not just sending it to John, because we all saw the target case study, target got it right or get it wrong. Why wouldn't you have AI suggest responses, documents, and materials to me when I'm talking to John?
Yes.
I can make this. Put the guardrails in. So I'll show you how we do that. And then the third part is, imagine, so we work with quite a broad range of organizations. Our smallest partner from was 180 million when we went live with them just in another county, credit union in Arizona. They're up to about 300 million now. Our biggest partner is BMO. And when they did the conversion 2.5 weeks ago from Bank of the West, they're running about 3,000 conversations an hour through the Ignite platform. Now, you can imagine that's great. But imagine you have 3,000 people an hour showing up and telling you what they want. Imagine the feedback out of that. So I want to show you how you capture the feedback. So your leaders can go back and look at what did my members talk about? What do they get?
So, Soren, when you, if you don't mind, I need to log you into the Zoom so that there are people who are remote and they need to see too.
I emailed you the link.
So if you could just log into the Zoom real quick, but turn off your, actually, you could turn on your microphone if you're going to be up there. That way we'll hear you clearly. And I'll turn off mine so we don't feedback. All right, so. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Isn't it in there? Yep, it should work. I'm gonna. Turn on my microphone. Test or just make sure folks online can hear. Tom, can you hear? Stacy, you put in the chat or on chat or anybody. Chris Kearney, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Hello.
I hear you both.
Great. Okay. So,
Yep, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. As I said, I'm going to fly through the slides because, as we all know, you can do anything with slides, right? And I'm sure we have both seen and bought some of those solutions in the. But how do I move this away so we don't get that?
there's a little thing in the
There you
top.
go. Yeah, there you go.
Minimize it and then move it to the right.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to put that
Good
here.
enough.
Okay, so the only thing you remember is a slightly tired guy with a funny accent. The thing I'd love for you to take away from today's presentation is this idea of putting your brands in the pockets. You're going to show a lot of technologies and channels and videos and co-browsing and lots of clever stuff. But fundamentally, what we want to talk about is putting your brands in your members' pockets. That's what we want to do. We want to reclaim those personal relationships. And as you get confused by what I talk about, just remember that. That's the important aspect of what we do here. You know this much better than I do. I grew up with it back in Denmark as a kid, right? As community banks, we believe as credit unions, we are here to help make our members' financial lives better. That's what we get. Sometimes that is giving them $200 in cash. Sometimes it's depositing a check. Sometimes it is helping them buy a home or buy a wedding ring or buy a car. There are a lot of different stages in life. And our objective is, as a credit union, to be the advisor that tells them, oh, Soren, maybe looking at your finances, maybe that's not the truck you want to buy today. Maybe you should think about a down payment on an apartment first or on a house first. And if we think about this idea of translating the physical world to the digital, and that's something I'll be anchoring a lot around today, combining the physical and digital, we need to start breaking down the boundaries. We have to get away from this is digital bank has nothing to do with the brands. We talk about digital members, we talk about brands members. We don't have that. We have members. Sometimes they go digital, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they walk into a branch. But if we think about when I grew up, why would people go to a branch? There could be a couple of different things, but fundamentally, I like to break things down in simple boxes that I can mostly remember it. First and foremost, I would walk into a branch if I had to do a transaction. Now, I actually think we've done a really good job at translating that digitally. I can do pretty much any transaction I can think of digitally on the run. So, job pretty well done. Member support. We all have call centers. We have people calling in out of branches to centralized call centers. And why is that? Well, I was trying to do something. It didn't quite go the way I anticipated, all for reasons I don't understand. My debit card doesn't work. Now, the call center is okay. We can't get rid of it. But is it a good experience? I mean, when was the last time you were on a call center, you called up and said, "This is really great. I'm really happy with that." It's not because of the people in the call center, but they have a thankless job. I mentioned the BMO conversion 3 weeks ago. At some point, BMO had a 20,000 queue, 20,000 people on the phone in queue, waiting. Now, can you imagine if you're one of them? You've been waiting for an hour, maybe 2 hours to get access to your money, and it doesn't matter how kind the person on the other end is. You're already angry and you come out swinging. So one thing is, we are only doing downside management when we do call centers, but also think about our colleagues in the member support centers. Could you imagine dealing with people like me 8 hours a day? It would be terrible. So I think, what can we do to make their life easier? I think there's an opportunity that we have not done well on, an opportunity to think about how do we provide easier support for our members? Is there anything we can take away? And in the process, giving our member support centers a little more headroom to deal with the things that are really important. We are even seeing, I'll talk a little bit about that later, we are seeing some of our partners are thinking now about turning that call center or member support center into a revenue center. That's really interesting. It's not cold calling, but it's when people call up and say, "Hey, can I increase my credit limit by 5,000? Of course you can. May I ask you, what are you looking to do? Because maybe the credit card is not the right choice. Maybe we should do something else. Maybe there's an opportunity to ask questions. If I'm not trying to get off the phone as quickly as possible, understand what the member is trying to do and tell them this is not so on. I think you're better off doing this instead." So I think we have that space for improvement here. And the third part, the financial guidance, the personal relationship, I think we have not solved that yet. I'm not saying we're the only solution. We think that we are a step towards solving that. I think this is the real opportunity. It is a risk if people are thinking about replacing their windows in the house and their first call of action is to go and Google it. Or if they're buying a car, what are the rates? That's not a good. We need to make it easier for our members to talk to us than it is to Google the answer. I think ultimately that should be our objective. Why would we do that? Well, it's evident that it will result, of course, in a better member experience. We believe that will reduce churn. It's probably also going to reduce the cost of serving, but first and foremost, it's about deepening the relationship. It is getting members back to the point where they turn to us for unmet needs and products. And I think that's a real opportunity. Some of you may have read some of the early work we did with Encore Bank. These are hard studies to do because we need to talk to the core, and whenever you talk to the core, it takes a year. So we did manage to do a study with Encore Bank where we looked at 5,000 pilot users over the first 9 months. On average, those 5,000 users saw a 15% uplift in average product holding over 9 months. Now, we didn't use the platform to do anything salesy. We simply just made it much, much easier to ask the person I already know, I'm thinking about doing this. And allowing the associate to have the conversation with the member. So that's the question we want to answer. Why does it have to be so hard? If you think about it, when was the last time with anybody outside the credit union? When was the last time you called somebody or walked in to somebody? I would never went down to my babysitter and said, "Are you available on Tuesday?" Mm-hmm. I don't think I've seen my mechanic in about 5 years. Because I drove off the car and then we text forth and back and secure messages and things like that. And then we pick up the car and that's it. But when it comes to my banking relationship with my credit union, we still think that why don't you just come down here to the branch? I'll give you a cookie if you do. And I say, there are no cookies that are good enough to make people come back.
Or coffee.
Or coffee. Coffee is good as well. I'm not going to dwell on this. You've seen this.
I just want to do just a simple kind of overview. You have all seen, so you can think about it. If you want to save the contact center, isn't that very much about web chat and SMS? Yeah, that's fine. I think it's good. Okay, that's tools we should use. We do that. I'll show you some of it. A couple of years ago, we then went one step higher. We felt quite sophisticated. We added video chat, co-browsing, chatbots, AI, et cetera, and I think they're very, very important tools. But fundamentally, I think where we have the opportunities, what John said before, is we can flip it around and say, I will always talk to the same person. The person I talk to will always have the context. They may not remember, but they can go back and read. What did we talk about last time? As you will see later, they may even correctly reach out to me and go, John, you spoke about the car 4 weeks ago. Are you still looking? Because if you are, let's talk.
It's just one thing to point out here, and I think we have this inverse relationship with availability and functionality, where the more available the channel is, thinking about mobile, the least functional it is. It's the one that you can't quite do everything on. And then the next rung down is a little more available, but then less functional. And then once you start to get to the human fronted channels is where you get the more functionality. And then the final is walking into a branch where you have complete, someone somewhere will figure out how to help you. And so I think that's part of what we're trying to fix here as well, is to shore up that functionality to where it's across the board. And I think we'll spend the rest of our life trying to code all that into something that's a GUI front end that will accomplish all of this. So I don't know that we'll ever get there. So that's what I saw out of this as well.
Yeah.
A question, you mentioned the idea that you can always get the same agent again, which I think is a great idea, and they may not remember you, but they can look at the notes.
Yeah.
How much of that is perception then? Because if you don't get the same agent, maybe me as the member, I don't get the warm fuzzy feeling, but if I'm routed to somebody else, they could read those notes too, right? So it's
They definitely help.
People do take vacation.
Yeah.
We get it. And we talked about that.
We often actually see a breakdown with the credit unions we work with. We often see a breakdown. The more member support centric, for example, Sanford Federal Credit Union, for the member support centric, you have a concatenated one long conversation. And what you describe is exactly what happens for the member support center. I may speak to you today, tomorrow I may speak to Sean, and the third day I may talk to John. But there's a level of persistency because the conversation is persistent. Mm-hmm. Now, when we get into the authenticated channels, so within mobile online banking or standalone, what Stanford has done, and again, the members credit union canal, they've all given their members ability to select their own associate. I'm going to show you that. It sounds crazy, but once you may have seen it before. It seems very, very frivolous, and we found that is probably the biggest differentiator we ever made. But we have found, of course, our members today, or our member partners, that on average, 80% of members would rather wait for John than talk to somebody else.
I'm saying. And it's funny because when we first started this years ago, we brought in a company that had done this study on realty, right? And what we determined was the number one thing that would impact either selling or buying your house, most important aspect of it was your choice of a realtor. And that he did studies that showed like this realtor was really good at selling this neighborhood and this kind of place and really good at buying here. But if you were in this other neighborhood, this realtor, for whatever reason, rocked in that neighborhood, could get you literally 10-15% more than what this person could. And to me, it's kind of that same thing here. It's a very similar concept, you know, with that. And so it's always about people. It's always about people. That's all this is.
Couldn't agree more, John. So,
Forget, I apologize. This is the inactive solution. We're not here to sell. I want to tell you about what we do, and I want you to shoot holes in it, because the more we learn from you guys, the better. But I'll say, what is it that defines the relationship that we have with people? And we try to kind of conceptualize it. And of course, we had this, John spoke about Matt Phipps before. Matt Phipps is our CMO, he's a very good CMO. So he came up with a new 4 Ps. Remember, you all remember the 4 Ps from our marketing classes? Space, the new 4 Ps, as he put it,
I
is
thought it was prior planning. Never.
the 4 things that we came up with was, we think relationships are personal. We want to work with people. I think if you go out and ask your members and you ask them, so who do you bank with? My guess is they're not going to say your credit union name. They're going to say, hey, I'm bank with John. He's my guy. So we think it needs to be personal. We need to honor that. It needs to be persistent. It cannot be, I mean, it never happens anywhere in life that I come back and send a new message to John and goes, hello, who are you? Yeah, that's not how it happens, right? That's not what we want. It needs to be persistent. It needs to be an ongoing conversation. Like when you look at my SMS string with my family, my 2 kids and my wife, that goes back for years, right? And there are thousands of messages in there. I can go back and find them if I want. And today's conversation builds on everything in the past. It needs to be bi-directional, as Matt put it, proactive. Proactive means that we need to enable our associates to reach out to our members. Right now, we are telling them, why don't we send them an email? That works so well. We never get spam emails, do we? We delete 200 emails twice a day because they're just, you're not even going to look at them. Then we say, why don't you give John a call and see if he wants to
Can I throw an idea? I'll shoot a hole at that. I'm going to fundamentally disagree, because this is just something that came to me. So if I get an email from no reply at Suncoast, Suncoast.com, he's right. I'll ignore it. But if I had a relationship, and I'll go back to my person Arvis, if I got an email from Arvis at Suncoast.com that said, hey, I remember you talked to me about this car, you might be interested, I would read that. And that actually could be a really killer, you may already have it, but that could be a really killer marketing model. Is you send the email from the person that has a relationship with that person and make them aware of it so they know it got sent on their behalf. You can't just kind of have it blown out. But that would make a big difference as to whether they would open it if they know the person that sent it to them. And yeah, I don't know if that's where you're going, but that just clicked for me. And I went, oh, wow, that's a big
if you don't misuse the trust.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's exactly what I was thinking, is you can't overuse that tactic.
I know.
The member has a very good
But I also think that if you don't use it, it's going to be table stakes soon for other people. I mean, I agree. I think that you have to, trust is the most important thing. And that's one of the things we talked about with regard to AI was not tricking anybody, because people feel stupid when they've been tricked. And that's the one thing you absolutely want to avoid. Nobody wants to feel stupid at the end of the day. But I do think you could use that. I really do. If it was a worthwhile thing. If something in the comments that the AI found is that John was interested in the car and had a conversation with Arvis about that, then I don't see any reason why Arvis couldn't shoot an email, even if it was like on her behalf, to that customer about that, because they had that context.
So we have that ability, but I'll show you a little bit later.
Okay.
We'll get into the
We didn't talk about that before.
What I even think is more powerful.
Yeah.
Last beat has to be profitable.
When I say it has to be profitable, I'm not just thinking about, of course, for the credit union, because we still need to survive. It also needs to be profitable for the associate that use it. Now, some of you may have seen, we have a case study with Pinal County. Pinal County 3 years ago, or I think it was 2.5 years ago, using the AI, I'm going to show you as well, identified that a lot of people are asking about auto loans. They saw about a 5-fold increase in auto loans within a week because they get basically daily, they can do near real-time tracking. They wrote a little inoffensive message to the members, and they handed that to all the associates, that relationship associates. Said, you know what, we have seen a lot of questions about it. Why don't you send this message out to your members and say, hey guys, a lot of folks have been looking at auto loans, the rates are pretty good right now. If you're interested, just let me know. Now, one of the associates closed 160,000 in 48 hours. That's a pretty good day for her. Wow, pretty 2 good days for her. But what she said was actually more exciting was all the people that went like, no, I'm not looking at buying a car. What I'm thinking about is, imagine give people something to disagree with, right? No, I don't want a car. I want a new roof. Excellent. Let me help you. Yeah. I'll show you that. And that's what I think, for example, John, exactly, your outreach is incredibly important. Last thing is with the profitability, your members need to be better off. I'm not going to come back if I'm not better off after I spoke to them before. Some of our clients have been actually here with the interest rates going the way they've been going, have been doing proactive outreach, say, listen, you have money sitting in a savings account. Why don't I roll that to a CD thing? Or you have money in a checking account. I can give you a 3.5% savings account. Would that be of interest? You know, if you do that, if you reach out to a member for something that costs you money, but put them in a better position, you're never going to use them. Okay, so the way we think about it is, so we call our platform Link. I'll show you that platform. It is from the associate side. It is a web interface or mobile app. We see most use of the web interface. We run dedicated instances for each client because the days of having big multi-tenanted stacks, you don't get a lot of benefits anymore. It is a SaaS service. We update. We do about 20 to 24 releases a year across all environments. And I'm going to show you the built-in AI. On the front end, our partners kind of pick and choose what kind of channels they want to use to let their members communicate with. One of the things we also wanted to address, where my heart lies, is in what we call mobile messaging, and I'll be showing you that. But we also realized showing up to a credit union and say, hey guys, why don't you have 6 different vendors? It's a non-starter. Also, it's a non-starter because you end up with information, incredibly important information about your member needs across 6 different channels. Then you have to go buy analytics software. So why wouldn't you aggregate them? So we built out the platform. So we support SMS. We prefer not to do it as marketing. We prefer it for example, conversational SMS. We have one of our partners has a very big Mennonite community, which means that they don't have smartphones. So SMS is really important for them. We, of course, support web chats with AI. We support co-browsing video. I'll show you that. WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger if you want to, and then the mobile messaging. But what I was planning to show here and get into the more details on was, I think we've all seen SMS before and Facebook messaging platform. What I'd like to dwell a little bit on is the web chats, because with AI, with co-browsing, with video, and I'll show you some uniqueness around that. I think it's worth thinking about. When you think about this very staccato experience, I talk to her. I'll take my favorite example. I use Comcast for internet for all my sins. It's a terrible experience. But regularly my internet is basically experience. I don't know if you have tried this before. Suddenly my internet will slow down. And I can't get it to go fast again. So I restart my modem. I then go on chat and somebody goes, hello, I'm Scooter, I can help you. Can I reset? Then it's very slow. Well, it's really slow. Have tried this? Yes, I have. And then they go, can I reset your modem? And you just have time to go, but one day, there goes the connection. Now, 20 minutes later, your modem's back up again, and it hasn't helped anything at all, of course. So you start another chat and you go, hey guys, that didn't work. Hello, how can I help you? Who are you? And you get to start over again. And that's incredibly frustrating.
And they'll reset the modem again. I see Stoner reset the modem. Looks like it didn't work. I'm gonna do it one more. Yeah.
And every time you get to repeat yourself. So that's why I want to talk about web chat. I want to just give some ideas around what can web chat be where it's a little bit different. And then we get into the mobile messaging. I think
if you're going to contact Comcast, do not use their internet to do it. You get on 5G. You're mobile. That way, when you get cut off, you can still talk to them. That's what I learned.
No, I think I'm going to skip this. I'm more than happy to share this, but this is just for race slides, right? We saw ethical banks in their public-facing web chat. They currently have 80% of all, in that case, customers completing their inquiry without talking to a human. I'll show you how we do that. And the secret is not hiding the human. I'll actually tell you, the more prominent you make the human, the more likely members are to self-service. But let me skip this and really go to the platform instead. Before we go in, I can see, does this make sense? This idea of saying that let's forget everything we know about banking, just think about how do we function as humans.
I think it's first principles, right? That's kind of the design process. Is let's start from where we are as humans. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Okay, is this too cramped? Is this too small? Can you see it? I promise I won't put anything too intellectual.
Well, and if you want to hop on your Zoom and just mute yourself, you can see closely on the Zoom as well. If you want to just jump on your presentation, but otherwise you should be able to see.
So, after a long flight, I'm going to be a little bit disjointed. So I am going to be a couple of different people. If by design this time on the left-hand side, I'm going to consistently be your colleagues, the associates. I'm going to start from my first use case. I'm going to use Lana for a few different use cases. My first use case, I'm going to think of Lana as a member support rep. On the right-hand side, I'm going to be a member or prospective member. And I'm going to keep that throughout the presentation, independent of what service channels we're demoing. So let me jump into it. You see, so this is my version of one of your websites. It's not as nice as yours. It's not as functional as yours, but it does have a happy family. So it must be a real credit union, right? You have seen chat before, and most of the time chat is instantiated through a little floating icon in the bottom right-hand corner. And when you come in and you click on that, a chat window will appear. And the greeting in here can be whatever you want it to be. Now, I would say first thing I would be worried about, you're going to meet people that say there are 80 different journeys in banking. If you say that, you're just proving that you have no idea what you're talking about. There are not 80 different journeys. There are thousands of different journeys, and trying to pre-configure them and dictate them, I think is a fool's errand. That said, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use AI. But what I think you need to do is you have to firstly make it your member's choice, but also don't have one web chat to rule them all. How many websites have you gone on that have one web chat? It doesn't matter where you are. You know, if you are on a public-facing website, the landing page, hi, hello, what can I do for you? Then you go to the mortgage page. Hi, what can I do for you? Well, what do you think? I'm on the mortgage page. Make it contextual. Why wouldn't you have multiple different member journeys depending on where the member comes from? Let me give an example of that. Imagine
if they were in a store and they were shopping around the the tool department, you would go over and go, hey, can I show you some shoes? You know, we know what they're there for. So I mean, it does relate back to the physical in a lot of ways.
Right, I mean, we have to. So let me give an example of that. Imagine if I didn't click on this. Instead, I came in and said, hey, I need some help. We do the same thing. We fire a web chat. But depending on what our membership base looks like, why don't we start by going, hey, how do you want to get helped? Now, if I'm here, that's probably good, like in California, a lot of Spanish speakers. So why wouldn't we make them comfortable up front by saying, do you want English or Spanish? I would say anything you see in here, I can show you some examples later. All our partners, the journey is entirely different branding, different look, different feel. And I think it's really important that you make this configurable, not just configurable at installation, but configurable near real time. The next couple banks that I showed before went live, they changed their journey 6 times in the first 4 weeks. Right? If that requires a code change, you're doing something wrong. Now, sadly enough, I must admit that my Spanish is even worse than my English. So I'm going to pick English here. And what we'll do is say, hey, what can I help you with today? You will notice that we use a little bot icon. You, of course, pick that. We very often recommend credit unions, make it personal. Don't just have a chat, make it a little bit fun, but tell your members that's on a virtual assistant. So right now we have Smart Alec, we have Gabby, we have Penny. And people come and say, hey, I'm Gabby. I do financials, virtual assistant. How can I help you? It's a way of making a little more community-like, but at the same time, be very, very clear. Remember that it's talking to a virtual assistant now.
What are the 6 categories?
The ones I have here is change address, lost, stolen card. I can't log in. I need my routing number. How do I deposit a check? And I want to talk to an agent or an associate. And we will. I mean, ultimately you decide. But you're going to find as a company, we are we are very opinionated because we have some scars from this. But I will push very, very hard to always have that talk to an agent on the top page. Don't hide the human. You're not Bank of America. I don't know. Have you tried Erica? Erica frustrates me incredibly. It's 20 minutes. Of
Almost as frustrating as cargo.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's 20 minutes of what Erica wants to talk about. You go human, 0, angry, money back. You try all the keywords you can think of, and you're just stuck in that spiral of chatbot. Don't do that. What we actually found with some of our partners, if you put that talk to a human upfront, they're more likely to try to self-service. Now, routing number is always a good one. For some reason, I don't know how it is for you, but many of our partners say just over double-digit % of calls to the call center are, what's my routing number? And that's pretty sad, right? But we shouldn't have to respond to that. You can have the virtual assistant come back. You know what? I'm going to cheat it.
One question, but it says talk to an agent. Does that literally mean, does it pick up a voice interaction or does it pick up a live chat?
We start with a live chat. Yeah, and I'll show you how to carry the concept. So if you want to escalate that to voice, video, or co-browsing, you can. And we think it's about creating the right channel for the right engagement. And I think this idea of saying, well, you know what, John, you have to decide what is the channel now. That doesn't make sense. Start the conversation, and we find out it's more complex than escalate the conversation. I'll show you how to do that.
So in my case, we came back and he told me what AIQ's financial, what the routing number is, and the virtual assistant will go, anything else I can help you with. We will also encourage using menus, because even though AI has not quite as fun as it was 3 years ago, you will get people coming in going, what's the weather going to be like in Timbuktu? And then we all laugh, right? That's hilarious. So menus help to contain people, but that doesn't mean that you should sell for that. If you have somebody come and say, how do I deposit a check, for example, you should have intent matching the platform. The platform should be able to understand what is this member trying to do, and then present back your defined answer. This is not a pre-typed, it is a pre-configured answer, but it's your pre-configured answer. And I would say to give you an idea, I believe what Stanford Federal Credit Union, they're a little more conservative than most, but they went live in about 6 weeks, end to end, including their configuration of the interactions here took about 2 weeks to configure, and they can configure them themselves. In this case here, I'll be asked, how do you want to deposit in branch at an ATM or via mobile phone? Oh, no, I don't want any more information. Now, in my case, that's an easy one, right? I want to do it from my couch. So I'm going to hit the mobile phone. And we think this is a good opportunity, and this is just an example, but have all your digital channel interact with each other, have them help each other. Tell me, oh, that's really easy. You open your app, you point your camera, and you click, and the check goes in, and it's all magic. But if you don't have our mobile app, why won't you point your camera at this QR code? And we'll then identify the user agent, bring up the device, and we'll take it to the iOS or a Google Play Store, so you can download the app. So you use this as a simple. People ask this repeatedly. Why don't we try to nudge them to the right behavior? So in my little journey here, I'm getting so excited that I'm like, wow, do I become a member? How do I open an account? And don't worry, I'm not just going to type off and back. But what I want to mention is that, if somebody says, how do I open an account or become a member? Very often people will go like, oh, that's really easy. And now you can start filling in the journey in the chat. That's not hard to do, but it's the best member experience. If you have already spent 6 or 12 months implementing a bottom line, a mantle, a Zeno, or anything that grow, anything like that, why wouldn't you make the virtual assistant make use of your digital footprint? So in my case, the virtual assistant comes back and says, it's really easy to open a new account, come over here. The virtual assistant now, sorry, I have a floating button here, there you go. The virtual assistant now brings the member over to the appropriate website. So instead of saying, you can help yourself, the chat follows over and say, now this is where you open an account. As we like to say, nobody opens a checking account to get a checking account. They need something. Either have money or they need money. It's kind of how simple it is. So I may want to know before I open the account with this credit union, AIQ Financial, can they deliver what I want? So at this point, can I talk to a bank or to an associate? And that's why, again, we're going to push you. You decide, but we're going to push you. Don't do the Bank of America. Just go, yes, of course you can. Don't ask any questions. Don't go, yes, but first answer 7 questions. It's just annoying. Nobody wants it. And they're just going to stop the chat and call the phone, call you at the call center instead. Now, what happens now is our platform will look at, okay, somebody came in, they want to talk to an associate. Our platform will look at, okay, so who's on the platform of our associates? Who have available capacity? So we cap it to say, you cap it to say, for example, how many concurrent conversations are Lana allowed to have? Very often we start with 2 to 3 when we just go live. Very quickly that can scale to 6 to 7. And it seems that anywhere from 6 to 8 is a reasonable number of concurrent conversations where you don't negatively impact the member. Now, it's quite a high number, but I'll show you later why we think that makes sense, because of the assistant guidance that are built into the platform. We also will look at what is the topic of conversations. So, for example, this is about opening a new account. You don't want to route this prospective member to the fraud team or to the credit card team. They're trying to open a new checking account, get them to write individual. So based on the topic of conversation, you will route them to potentially a subgroup within your contact center. You have 20 people in a contact center. There may be 3 or 4 of them that are really good at opening accounts. Why don't we go straight to that? From Lana's perspective, Lana will get as you can see up here, pop-up notification, and I turned off my sound, but also audio visual. So an audio notification as well, that somebody, we don't know who they are yet, but somebody came in and started a conversation. We want to make sure that Lana has all possible context before she starts the conversation. So she can read everything that happens. She can start freehand typing if she wants now, or Lana may cheat and say, I have some pre-typed messages here that I use frequently. They can be organization-wide, or they can be Lana's specific messages. We can imagine we'll be talking forth and back here. And as I mentioned before, I think the idea of just saying, because we started with a chat, we should stay with a chat. That's, I don't think it's a good idea. I think we should let the need drive the channel, not the other way around. What I also find, and that's probably my weird Scandinavian humor, one of my favorite things I've ever seen was an organization I worked with. They sent me 2 emails on one day. The first one was, hey guys, be careful of phishing. Don't click on any unsuspected links. I will not do that. Just click on this link through our customers. And I just like, this is brilliant. I mean, this is fantastic. So I think the idea of if Lana is chatting with our prospect here and say, let's escalate this conversation to a video chat. Don't send a weird URL. It's not the right answer. So embed whatever you do within your chat. So in my case, I can pull up my camera here. Just going to stick a background on it as well. There we go. So you can't see that I'm on the road here. But notice what happens on our members' perspective. They get a little icon that says join the video chat. Not a link. Don't download anything. Don't install WebEx, or partly because the year 2001 is software back. I will, of course, be asked to allow access. That's the browsers that do that. But as we go in, we'll establish the video conversation once my Wi-Fi works the way it should. Oh, we're going to have a little, I apologize for this, because I am on Zoom. And on this video, this camera is not going to show up. I apologize for that. I'm going to trust me if I say we know how to do video. If I tell you that we didn't build our own because other people are better than that.
Oh, the web RPT, web RTC is
exactly. So of course I can focus on my conversation here. I can move around. I can keep sending messages and files here. And as we are in here, I may find out, instead of just saying that this cost the number, whatever, I'm just going to name the conversation John Best here. And I'll show you shortly why I bother doing that, other than I can remember what to call him during our conversation. Now, as we're in here, I may realize that John is actually okay with the product. He just has some questions around, for example, the social security number. Can you use EIN number instead? And in an online account opening, hopefully we shouldn't see too much of the dropout. But to give you an idea, right now people will see between 3,000 and 5,000 shares from their account opening journey a month. That's about bigger than the time. So clearly it's not as intuitive as we always want it to be. But if I'm chatting to John, instead of telling John, why don't you explain to me what you see? We should let John just show me. So with or without video, I can escalate our conversation to a co-browsing session. Now, co-browsing for something like this is I think is really valuable. I'm a little bit slow here. I apologize for that. Come. My connectivity is a little bit slow, but we should be able to. Okay, I'm getting it. Okay, there we go. No. Is there a IP?
It might be. We're on there. You're on the your guest network. I'm not sure. Like I tried to go to Discord earlier and it didn't like that.
Is that a ruler?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Let me just. Okay, I can quickly.
Well, when it disconnected, yeah, I think it'll dump you if you try to use IPsec.
We'll just believe it.
I believe you. Yeah.
I believe you.
Yeah. We all know we could. Yeah, co-browsing is. We've seen that. I think.
Yeah, okay.
I did want to. Okay, I'm just gonna for fun.
Now, one thing. So while you're doing that,
Yeah.
all of this is saved, right? So the session for the co-browsing and the video, all of that's yeah.
That's
So
right.
that could be replayed back to the person too,
Yeah.
right? The Lana.
That's exactly right.
Awesome.
Now, in this case, I think we do have. Looks like we have some level of success.
Okay.
Session invitation. Come.
Yeah, because usually it'll pop something up, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Device not responding.
Wow. Okay. In that case, you are going to take my word for it.
Yes,
Okay.
we believe you.
Okay. Just
I've seen it. And I have a video of it. So
there you go. I'm really stubborn. The reason why I bother actually showing a co-browser,
Oh, there
I've
it goes.
seen it before, but I do think it's worth thinking about how to use co-browsing. There are different tiers of co-browsing. It's very often like it's on a whole. We see across our plugins about 50-50 split on how the plugins want to use it. What I'm showing right now is what I like to call the viewpoint and annotate. I can see John's screen. I get my little laser pointer, so I can go, hey, John, can you put your name here? I have a laser pointer, and I get a pen, meaning that I'm going to say, John, this is where I need you to put your social security number. This is really important. Now, for account opening, you can imagine this is useful. Imagine how useful this is when somebody calls up the course and then say, I can't log into online banking. What do you see? Well, there's a blue box. So having the ability to escalate a conversation. So we do actually allow that. You'll see if somebody calls in the member support center, what the member support folks generally do is, can you go to our website? Can you launch the chat? Can you click on the little hamburger menu? If you read that number back to me, I can grab the conversation so I can co-browse while we're still on the phone. Suddenly you're taking a 20-minute call to become a 4-minute call instead. That can be really meaningful.
So that's kind of a lot for someone older to be taking, because, and I guess the thing I think about is, a lot of what's happening today with fraud and scamming is that some of these guys, what they do is convince somebody to install something else. For this, you're doing it completely with browser.
Yeah.
But how do you reconcile with somebody who's not very technical, who's older, who doesn't, they just get their they're just gonna hear someone say, click here, click here.
Yeah.
So a fraudster is gonna come in and say, hey, I know that we've had you use the browser before, but what I need you to do is actually download this from this link and then install that stuff. So I mean, I think it could be confusing for people.
And I think that's back to first principle. Take it back to if somebody shows up and says, hey, can you share your screen? No. But if John shows up and says, initially I was thinking, if I'm talking to John, I think it comes back to here would be more when if I know exactly who I'm talking to, and so the person has some level of trust with, I'll be more inclined to do this. But again, there's
It's a chicken and egg kind of a thing too. But
Yeah, and there's just kind of this duality there, because at least is that, Americans, on one hand, are very private, and they're very suspicious of everybody. On the other hand, you get them across that line, they'll do anything. So, I think this is just a fun thing that it's to work. So, like in Europe, I mean, probably everyone, they're just kind of used to it.
I mean, so you know that
Remember an issue. When we're facing fraud, they reached out to the 99% of the time. It's not us. It's not that the member came to us, I mean, unless they went to that site. But for this,
But it's still an assumption. It's an assumption that the member is going to automatically know that someone isn't going to, even though you told them 100 times,
Yeah.
you're gonna catch them on that one good time. Listen, I got caught out fishing just last week for all the perfect storm. I was waiting for a package to come into here Suncoast. I've been waiting for it for a couple days. I wasn't thinking. I never click on link. I've never been caught a fish in all my life. But yeah, I got caught a fish last week.
that's really good.
But what I'm saying is that you can't assume that you can't put all the responsibility on the member that no one's gonna reach out to them, that they can't put that in certain things, that it's a lot for them to kind of remember. Whereas I mean, at least what we're trying to do with the product part is we're trying to figure out how can we stave these up for the members so they don't have, they don't have to but
absolutely.
but that's what kind of.
I sort of get that. I say
I think that, I mean, this doesn't really, solve it, or, it's not a resolution to what you were saying exactly, but, we actually had a situation where there was a phishing email that came through, and, just because it came from Ed, and because I know the way he addresses me and the way he speaks, I could tell that it was not from Ed. It completely looked like it would be, but it was not. And so, having that relationship with, a person, eventually they're gonna, like I said, it's not going to build that initial, trust or knowledge of how to use the product. But once you're in there, if you're dealing with a certain person, you're gonna know how they speak and, build that.
Well, then you're just gonna have humans. They're not AIs completely out. Because they're not like this guy, funny accent, cool accent. And so now there's a copycat, right? You have humans. Okay, I will reach out because you get to know, or how you use that cost effectiveness with the app. Right? So
no, I think there's middle ground there. I think the agency, and that's kind of what you're talking about. We've talked a lot about agency as it relates to the staff, as it relates to the members. And I think that I could have, if I know that that's, but again, this doesn't solve your problem. It's a chicken and egg problem. This is a brand new member who maybe what to Suncoast.io is what you're getting at. And Suncoast.io is the exact duplicate of Suncoast. But when you click the chat, you're talking to bad guy B wherever. I get it. But with regard to being able to speak to people or have the AI speak on their behalf, I do think it will become acceptable to have sort of proxy AI, as long as the proxy AI announces itself as some John Best or Suncoast AI agent that's been directed by John Best to reach out on that behalf. Now, that said, I think we're going to have to go a step further with regard to, and I was saying this early on, with regard to the security, especially transparent security things, is something we're going to talk about tomorrow, is transparent security. So, for example, one of the things I talked to the Hardee's guys about, now that I'm in touch with them, was, it would be hard to put voice verification on that drive-through thing. It's coming through pretty clear. And really, voice verification is not necessarily always about the quality of my voice, but it's about the cadence and what I say. So you could have a drive-through remember who I am. I think we're gonna have that with devices and some other things. I think there's gonna have to be some escalation. But I don't think you can throw out the entire service, especially co-browsing and stuff, because and I don't think you're suggesting this, but that's where my mind goes is, well, if we say we never co-browse, like you said, they're just not gonna remember that. So it's kind of like you're damned if you do.
I'm saying there's difficulties we have.
Those options. Yeah.
What you said earlier is kind of being because a lot of what I see here is really being done right. Because I went to the IRS website or this is IVR. I called the IRS IVR and they kept dumping me out.
Right.
And let me tell you, I never want to call them again.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have to. But I'm just trying to get a person on the line, and I like the idea of always make available a human, no matter where you are on the stage. Because yeah, there's lots of times I'm okay with using some of the stuff you're just collecting, some basic information so they know well. But what's frustrating is the sample of Verizon, where I answer all the questions, I get a rep, and they ask me all those questions again. And like, why did you ask me these questions?
It's like the rebooting of the router, right?
Yeah,
same thing.
so I think a lot of this is right. I think it's pretty cool. It's when now that we're getting deeper and we're talking about co-browsing and stuff like that, I think we just have to be careful with what happens there because these fraud guys are always scheming. And just like you said, they could have a completely duplicate website.
Perfect website, yeah.
And probably even do the same.
Oh, they absolutely. I could do WebRTC in a few minutes. Yeah, I completely agree.
So,
But I would say, so one of the things, we can share data about clients that do use the services. Also, for us, the key is anything you see me demonstrating has to be configurable. You decide what's right thing to automate. We also find, for example, co-browsing is incredibly powerful when people are logged out of online.
Yeah.
It is.
no doubt.
So you can limit it to a certain sub-team that are allowed to use it.
Oh, and did you were saying Pinellas County Schools, right?
No, Pinellas County Federal
Pinellas?
Credit Union.
Where's that one at?
Pinellas, that is outside Costa Mesa, an hour outside Arizona. It
Oh,
used to
okay.
be,
Arizona.
TTS.
Well, if it's Arizona, then I imagine that 89% of their members are over 65. That's I'm going to go with that. And we see that a lot. So I'd be interested in some of your stats on that. I think it's a good point though, because I think we struggle creating the diversity across the services. And now, to your point, Chris, we're going to struggle creating sort of different strokes for different folks with regard to security. And it's hard to do.
I said, Chris, just to make it one step up. Again, this is about split 50-50 across organizations. If you want to, you can actually give your associates the ability to go one step higher. The member will be asked, but now you're actually collaborating with them. So you can say, you know what, I'm going to help John fill in the form here. It's not just, I'm not only watching now, I'm actually collaborating with John. Yeah. But again, the organization decide if they want to do this.
Is all that captured so we know what happened in the session?
Absolutely.
That's also really good.
Yeah. Now, I want to get a little bit beyond it. So these are features you have seen before. I'm just going to say, okay, we'll take a little note here and say, hey, John became a member today. And what John is probably going to do when he's done with his web chat, he's going to go, that's great. I shall now go and look at what the stock market is doing. And that's probably going to be an unpleasant experience, I'd imagine, today. And it is. What Lana, of course, is going to do is great, I'm done with the conversation. She closed the conversation and the conversation, but nothing actually goes away. I think one of the key challenges is we should not take that conversation away. Keep the conversation. So now, again, this is configurable and the timeline is configurable by you. But imagine that if John comes back. Now, Lana will, of course, have moved on and she's working with somebody else instead. But suddenly John comes back and he goes, you know what? I want to talk to Lana again. Of course, we'll do that. We'll transfer you back. Instead of just routing you back to any random person.
So cool.
You go back to, you'll see the notification popping up over here.
Just a quick point. I love this. The thing that made my head is when we have an SMS with somebody, you ever go back to an SMS? It's like kind of old. Who was saying their mechanic? Was it you? Like, yeah, you don't talk to them. I go back and I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a while, but we pick up right where we left off because they know the context because they can see it.
And see, as Lana, I grab the conversation. I get everything that happened in the past. I get all the notes. And instead of having, hello, how can I help you? It becomes, oh, hey, John, did you get your data? it just becomes a different experience. I'll show you one more thing that I like a lot, evidently sound like I do. So now I'm going to show why I speak like I do here. Let's imagine, members going to come at you in any way. I showed a little bit of Spanish before, but what if people just show up and say, yeah, I had meat. Oops. See this? This is not good, is it?
Gotta get some umlauts.
I need class. Yeah, I do. Once somebody comes in and said, in this case, jeg har tabt mit kreditkort, and I think I've mistyped that. Sorry, I actually can't even spell it myself. Jeg har tabt. Okay. I come in, I type a message. I suspect actually if I'm not wrong, John, you could actually guess what it meant. But it is a bit unfair to assume that Lana will know what it means. So one of the things we built into the platform is the ability to real-time translate a message. So as I'm looking here, and I can make it a little bit bigger so you can actually see what's going on over here. Just for this back the instance here. Lana gets a notification, says, Sept, this is a foreign language. We identified it as a foreign language. We can translate it to English. We'll tell you what the language is. And Lana can now go back to, ooh, that's not good, but I can help you. Grab the translate capability and move it back to Danish and respond to the member in their language of choice. Now, today, of course, we didn't build this because other people have that. We use Google APIs. So we do an individual messages, so there's no concatenation or member data being shared. But it means we support 109 different government certified character languages. So you can converse in Korean or Chinese or whatever you want to work with. We have an interesting case that came out about 4 weeks ago with First Arkansas Bank and Trust. They're about 900 million community bank based out of Jacksonville, Arkansas. They also run a credit card portfolio. And that credit card portfolio is based around Quebec in Florida. So twice a year, they have a lot of French speakers coming in. So about 20% of all conversations they had with me were in French. And as they told us, it's really hard to find French speakers in Jacksonville, Arkansas. So
You
they
need to go to
started
Louisiana.
I say the other thing I would advise, I don't know how many of you we find that for some organizations they use overnight call centers, so they outsource overnight. But if somebody calls at 2 a.m., they want somebody to pick up the phone. But at the same time, we found some with extra I mentioned before, 80% of those calls require a call back during business hours. And in this case, these guys were paying about $12,000 a month for the overnight calls, and that's a lot of money for nothing really. So they have this, they have deprecated that service. Instead, they have created what we call the follow-up flow. So if you come in and you do a chat at 2 a.m., they're allowed to talk to a person. They're going to go back and say, I'm sorry, we're not here right now. Would you like us to follow up with you? And if the member says yes, so like, how would you like us to follow up with you? Email or phone, collect the information, tag the conversation. So when you come in the morning, you'll see that 5 or 8 conversations overnight of members that ask you to follow up with. And if you want to talk about good member experience, imagine talk to a chat about at 2 o'clock in the morning, and somebody calls you next day and say, "Hey, you asked me a question last night."
Do you design the system with culture in mind? Like how people, let's say, talk to each other in the state. That dynamic may be different than in
yeah.
So does that get accounted for in some way with platform?
I think the biggest thing is everything you see in the chat, anything that's all the configuration is configured by you. We'll show up and guide you. But I think the most important thing is the tone of voice, the culture, the product names, all the small things that make this your solution, not a solution. So yes, we will come back and we need to, what we have found is spending 6 months pontificating on what members will ask about is not a good idea. So it's about asking the contact center or member support center, what are some reasons why people call, and you don't have to verify it. But then the real important aspect is use your tone of voice, your feel, and then refine it. And I'll show you shortly how we do the refinement, how you get insight into what members actually use it. I'll show you that in a little bit. First, can I make a little? So I like this. It's very, very useful. But this is ultimately personal relationships at scale. It's getting there, but I think we can do a lot better. Imagine when we get into a world where suddenly members are authenticated, where your members are authenticated instead.
For that, I'm going to exemplify that through, I'm going to get rid of this, sorry. And this, more sorry. I'm going to pull it up on my phone. Now, we have a variety of different credit union using our, what we call the authenticated service. Some of them work with Fiserv, but we are really sorry because getting Fiserv to integrate anything is 12 to 18 months in fair months. And some of our partners, like Pinal County, they are fortunately moving to another much more flexible than that next summer. But they got a simple answer. Fiserv, yes, we can do that. It'll be 18 months in $300,000, and like that doesn't work. So in that case, we actually developed a standalone application for that. The benefit of that is it's available both to existing members and investors. But if you are on any of the typical digital providers, which is Finasta, Banno, integrated PI, integrated with FIS now, we can also embed the service within the existing digital platform. So I'm going to show you the journey is quite different because once we start getting into the authenticated space, we get a little more horsepower to play with because now we're not just waiting for the member to come to you. So I'm going to show you my standalone app. I'm happy to show you what it can look like when integrated, if that makes sense as well. But I just want to show you what is the experience, whether you're integrated or not. What do we recommend to be the experience? Well, first time your member shows up, tell them what the service is about. This is your personal advisor. This is not how to deposit a check. It is your John. It's safe and secure. This is not Facebook Messenger. You're not going to see ads for new credit cards when you use this. And it's about much, much more than depositing a check. If you want to, you can have separate terms and conditions. Most people don't. And in my case, I need to sign in because, well, this is a standalone app. But if you are on one of the more typical vendors, we do single sign-on. So the customer, the member is, of course, automatically authenticated. So as we get into this app, of course, it's a chat experience. But now we have the opportunity to make a difference. And I see the way we do that is say, instead of just saying, well, welcome, John, you're going to work with Ed, because we hear he writes great situations and have a positive tone of voice. Then instead of dictating who your members should work with, why don't we give them the power back? Say, who do you like to work with? We like to say we know a lot about our members. Well, we do know what it is to debit card. We may know about the mortgage, but we don't really know the big things in life. Do they like the snow? Do they like sand? Do they like cats or dogs? Cats that go wrong. There's a lot of like human traits that we don't know about them. So we spent early on we spent about a year trying to figure out how do we marry people in a way that makes sense. And in a third frustration, one of my colleagues said, why don't we let them choose? Well, that's actually really clever. So what if we allow Lana and all her colleagues to create their own little baseball card? The baseball card will talk about who they are as human beings. If any of you read Park Direct, Park National Bank, they have a service called Park Direct that's been live for 2.5 years. When the service went live, that bank and that is that got selected most frequently, 3 times more frequently than anybody else, had a tagline that said, life is short, eat donuts. But if you want to, I mean, the thing is, when people think about banking and finance, they often think about me, the middle-aged white man, maybe with some nonsense. And if I'm 20, that's not who I want to talk to. If I'm my wife, who grew up in Singapore, she would never pick a white guy to bank, given a choice. So why don't we let her pick who she wants to work with? So we'll present a carousel of people that are relationship associates. We'll encourage them to do a little bit of their background. Use a background photo that makes sense to them. Once I do this, I'm going to, of course, just for demo purposes here, I'm going to select Lana. Once I select Lana, Lana is now my associate for as long as I want it to be. Because I'm in the authenticated space, I know that I can always come back to Lana. Lana will be notified that Matt came in, and we can do all the same wonderful things as we did before. We can use AI if we want, self-service if we want, or we can just have a conversation. We find that there is definitely an evolution of these relationships. Very often they start out a bit transactional. Hey, I need some more checks. Can you help me? And if Ed is able to help me, I will go, well, actually, Ed helped me last time. I'm going to ask him a question. I'm just going to say, you know what, if I'm buying a car, what do you think I should do? Is now a good time, or are they going to get cheaper? Whatever it may be, you build some level of trust. And as you do that, that's when we start seeing more open-ended requests come in.
But of course, if I only ask Ed once, so in this case, if Matt only speaks to Lana one time, then he leaves the app. What happens then? Well, now we're back to the email, we're back to the phone call. Or are we? The beauty of a mobile app, of course, is you can proactively reach out. So I can now go back and I can send a quick response. I can go, if I can read it. Thank you for selecting me as your banker. What does that result in? Well, it'll trigger a push notification on Matt's side. And what do we know about push notifications and little badges on apps? We have to clear them. But what is nice is we're not telling Matt, hey, this is not Matt. Can you respond to me between 8 and 5? Because that's when I work. Well, sadly enough, that's also when Matt works. So he doesn't have time for that. But it means at 9 o'clock at night, Matt can go in and have a read the message from Lana and respond to it at his convenience. What we have seen is, we see that both with retail users, but also small businesses, a lot of messages are sent at night. Now, if I send a message at night, it's not because I want to respond at 10 p.m. That'll be unreasonable to expect. But I want it off my plate, and I want to, sorry, Ed, I'm going to pick on you. I want to send to Ed because he always responds to me. And I don't want to actively wait. I don't want to go back and check if he responds. I just want to get a notification when Ed responds to me. Now, in my example, you see Lana has about nearly 700 members as her book of business or portfolio. That does vary by organization. The highest we see today is a bank out of I'm apologize for that, but it's a bank out of Boston, Rockland Trust. Their most prolific bankers, they do nothing else than this, have a book of business of 8,000 customers per bank.
Just one person.
One person with 8,000. The average is just over 4,000.
So when you give the carousel, are you giving like average wait time? Or?
Well, that's the thing, because what we see, people now fit it into more kinds of time. When I send a message to my wife, I never anticipated 10 second response time. And hereby, if I try to invoke that, I'll be in trouble. But we find people who set the right expectations up front, they realize that now it's not a real-time conversation. I can send my message, I'll get a notification whenever it's made. I'll respond to that 2 hours later. I don't have to be ready. So it becomes much more organic, like how we interact with our friends. We send messages as and when we can.
But they're setting the expectation up front.
Yeah, so normally
It's gonna be real time.
no. So what we normally do, you see something, I'm sure you rock and trust. I'll generally respond to you in 4 hours, but if you leave a message on that, I'll get back to you as I can.
It feels like during business hours, I kind of expect it, to come back to me pretty quick.
I think for me,
But I can show you something.
Talk to you when I have somebody else who I can talk to right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
That's a good question.
You can toggle between.
Let me just have a look here. Oh, wait
That's
a
a good
minute. What did FNBO found when they launched? So we do exactly what you said. If I work with Lana and Lana is unavailable right now, the platform will go back. Hey, Soren, Lana is not here right now. You want to wait for Lana, you want to talk to somebody else. You see that's the number. 75 to 80% of members said, I would rather wait for the person I selected than talk to somebody else right now.
But those early people, they don't really have relationships with them.
Right.
With them, so then my next question is,
Yeah.
If Lana's not available,
Yeah.
is it gonna put me back in the carousel?
No, let me show you.
Just give me.
Okay, I'm gonna cheat a bit. I'm gonna show you what the experience is like, even if Lana is available. So I think we have here. I want to show you what it looks like. So this is the experience a member would actually have when you come in. If Lana is unavailable, you get this. Unfortunately, Lana is currently not available. Would you like to talk to a different banker or wait for your primary, your personal relationship manager? Now, if I say I want to talk to somebody else, the platform will look at who else is available, and they're not going to hand over the message, they're going to add into the conversation. So for example, if you're my relationship manager, and I said, oh, I need to talk to somebody right now. John will get added into our conversation. So when you come in tomorrow morning, you can see that I spoke to John and he helped me, and you can practice this out. Say, hey, Soren, I spoke to John last night. Just want to make sure we're able to take care of that. And know about John.
So, but is when you hit that, talk to a different banker, you get the carousel again?
No, you get routed to somebody because
Okay.
if you want to talk to somebody else, you want to talk to somebody right now. You don't really care who it is.
Okay.
And for example, Stanford and IMCU and the others, they actually use for talk to a different bank, but they will see if it's a relationship associates are available. And if not, they use the contact center as the overflow for that. So you can prioritize.
Except your wife.
Now, I showed the ability to, yeah, I'll wait for Lana, I'll be a nice person. Sorry? I do, I'll show you that. Yep. I just want to show you one thing here. Lana has 680 members that are, reaching out to them one-on-one is a little bit ominous. So one of the tools we built just for portfolio management is Lana can go in and look at her book of business, her customers, and she can then sort them how she sees fit. So you know what? I'm just going to look at the ones I haven't spoken to for a period of time here. And I'm going to grab 50, 100, 500, and I'm just going to send them a non-salesy message. Whatever you do, don't make it salesy. Just make it a happy Tuesday. I'm really sorry about this. Anything I can do for you. Not salesy, just remind them that you're here. When Park National Bank went live, their KPI for their associates or their bankers in their case was that 65% of all conversations should be started by their associates.
Oh, wow. That makes sense, though. That's what I was saying. It makes sense. In this case, though, it does what you said, because it's coming in via the app in the tile there, so it's less likely to be the security thing. It's not a solicited email, so don't worry about a link either. So that's cool. Think about it like that.
Now, what is going to happen, of course, is Matt is going to read this message and go, no, I'm fine, I don't need anything. And after that, we go, I need a mortgage. And don't worry, I'm not going to just do a long conversation here. But mortgages are really big topics consistently. I guess it's hopefully the biggest loan you'll ever have to take. Now, why did I do that? Well, I wanted to show a little bit hard for you to see, so I'm going to try to make it a little bit bigger here. You'll notice the first thing that happened over here. Do you remember I spoke about AI helping Lana? Well, the first thing that happened was the conversation got tagged. Lana didn't do anything. How many times have we gone to the member support center and says, why did people call? And then we asked them to use a drop-down list. Which ones are the ones we pick? That's the one at the top. If I'm busy, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just adding in what is the topic that we have. That I'm not doing the real job actually. So we think, why wouldn't you use natural language processing to identify what the topic is and tag that? I'll show you how we use it later. You'll also see a little light bulb popped up. This is our platform's way of telling Lana, well, Lana, somebody else has asked one of your colleagues the same question. Based on that, we've synthesized some suggested responses. Now, they're synthesized only for your friend. They're not, you doesn't gather data from what other organizations say. You'll also see I run on real production code, which means that most of the time we just go hello, hello, hello. So the platform thinks that hello is a suitable response to I need a mortgage. In my case, that doesn't happen in real life. But of course, we can either turn this off, Lana can ignore it, or say that's actually pretty useful. I'm going to use that. But on top of that message, we also say, well, our marketing team spends lots of money putting together documents, materials, stuff that is useful if you're closing a mortgage. Why wouldn't we say, well, Lana, if you need that, just go to the intranet and find it together with the other 2 terabyte of data.
Yeah.
So we think a very, very smart use of AI is to say, well, Lana, we have documents and materials that you may want to use. You don't have to, you decide. AI should never take over. It should be assisting. So AI will pull up materials, marketing materials in this case, that Lana may find helpful. Now, if Lana wants to use, she just clicks on it and sends it across. We also, of course, get larger documents. We index a larger document using Elasticsearch. So I can go in and say, well, I want to look at what to expect. This is what the next 8 weeks of your life is going to look like. So you can send a document to your member and say, this is what you should anticipate. So you can send any kind of document, any kind of material. You can send a DocuSign, Adobe Sign, any kind of security document. But also, we're going to ask our members to say, can you just send back your 1099 or your W-2 or your utility bill? And what do we do? In real life, none of us have those files. So what would we really do, right? We're going to pull up our camera and go, ooh, click. I'll take a picture of maybe the room or my utility bill. And I'm now sending in a secure encrypted channel, encrypted in transit, encrypted at rest. I'm sending files forth and back between me and my associate. These files can be accessed anytime in here with a file who sent them, when were they delivered. So we think there are things we can do here. Now, we also know that before I'm able to start talking to Matt about a mortgage, I have to ask him a couple of questions. And we all know that that is the standard question that we may have to ask. Why wouldn't we automate that? And this is again back to the idea of having AI and humans work together. If I need to ask simple questions, why wouldn't I just go, hey, Matt, I just need to confirm some information. Is it okay if I get my virtual assistant to help? So if we go back to, I want to just do confirm my member information. Once I hit enter, the virtual assistant takes over. Now we are going to be honest with Matt. Tell him it's AI. Tell him it's not Lana anymore, because we all feel dumb every day. We don't need to be helped. So be honest with the member. And what it also tells Matt that you don't have to respond right now. You can respond whenever it's convenient to you. That could be tonight. We'll go back, we'll collect the data, verify the
So
information.
it's not going to like time out.
Not going to time out. It'll sit and wait until the member comes back. And it may also ask for data that we do not have yet. What's Matt's role? I mentioned before, Matt is our CMO. So the moment Matt responds to that, you'll see the data gets tagged, captured and tagged as structured data within the platform. AI goes, excellent, I'm all done with you. Hands the conversation back to Lana. So Lana gets notified. And Lana can now go back with the ever-present emoji and go, excellent, thank you. What we also found was that Lana is probably a really good relationship associate, but she may not be a mortgage expert. So having Lana go through soup to nuts, you don't want to get up in that journey where we go and again, Chris, also Chris, you're interested in mortgage. Why don't I get something for you in the next 4 to 48 hours? And you get to tell the whole story again. That's kind of what happens. Yeah, but not somebody who finds. We think we can do better. What if we were to take a bunch of centralized resources, shared resources, subject matter experts? They're not in the carousel. They can't be selected as relationship bankers, but they're floating resources for your relationship managers. Let me show you. I can go back and say, would it be okay if I ask a colleague to join us? And assuming Matt is okay with that, I'm now going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to take another person. I'm going to make an amazing mortgage broker called Soren available. Mm-hmm. Lana can now say, I want to add a colleague of mine. I don't just want any colleague. You can configure your own teams within the credit union and say, I want somebody on the mortgage team. Now, I have a ridiculous number of people here because this is a demo platform and all my colleagues play with it. What we normally see, it goes anywhere from 2 to 7, 8 mortgage experts, because honestly, they're not used more frequently than that. But you can find out how many you want, keep them on. In my case, Soren is available. I'm going to add him to the conversation. I'm actually also just going to make a quick note here that Matt wants to buy his second home in Tampa. This is really a beautiful place. How does the world look from Matt? Well, we're not handing off the conversation. From Matt. Soren comes in, he sees he's been added to the conversation. He gets to read the whole conversation. He gets to read any notes that have been made about it. He gets to grab the conversation. Say, hey, I'm Soren. I'll be happy to help you. So what we're achieving is that from a member perspective, sometimes your relationship manager does everything you need. Sometimes you're concerned. If you walk into, I was going to say Saks Fifth Avenue, but I don't. But if I walk into Macy's and say, for example, hey, I need some new business clothes. When I need a shirt and a shoe, I need a suit and some shoes. Somebody's going to go, what's on this shirt? And that's great. And then you walk your own and reach into our shoe guy. Sometimes the relationship associated is doing exactly that. They're simply just facilitating the inclusion of the right person, so the member never has to navigate the credit union.
So let's say that I have a great relationship with you.
Yeah.
We've been friends for the last year.
Yeah.
And but I want to be able to get or be able to take and get a download of the whole conversation that we ever had. Did I get that?
We have not had a request to export it yet because you already have it on your device. Of course, honestly, going to consumer protection, you can of course request it as well. But we have not done I want to download this conversation because honestly, we would, there are a few things. We want to align with your record retention policy. So in some organizations, that's 24 months, and some it's 84 months, anywhere in between. So we will retain all conversation. You're able to scroll back through the conversation within the app or within online banking. But if you want us to be able to download and share it out, that's not really very long.
So, okay, so that brings to that point. I know that there's certain amount of data that you have to retain, but let's say I consider some of this private information not being a paranoid American here. And I want you to delete anything from previous to 6 months or something.
Do that. So
Yeah.
we then also configure to say how long we want to keep the messages, files, documents. We are not going to touch the consumer record, meaning the fact that Matt is a member
Right.
and he has a member ID. So we're not going to touch that.
Sure.
But we can expire messages, files, documents automatically. We do that automatically.
Okay.
You also do, of course, and I know this is crazy in the time of, I mentioned FIS and FISA, but you do also get your own API gateway. So this is your data. You can, of course, access through the platform where you can download it.
Yeah, I'm not doing a code API, so.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. It's coding. Okay, so you know what?
I think his point there was that you could create something inside home banking if you wanted to say we could access this and download it, or you could put it mobile. I think the real big would be that everybody's going to want to boil this in the mobile, into the Alchemy or the Bano or whatever.
Are there integrations with CRMs?
Yeah, there are. So we're playing those Salesforce. We're in the process of actually one of our newer ladies wants to put the cost.
You said Salesforce at the beginning, right?
Sorry?
You said Salesforce in the first, is that what you just said? Sorry, I didn't hear. Apologies.
And what you want to do with Salesforce depends. It can be anywhere from people just want to sync notes and next best actions, but we want to carry whole conversations. Very often we find that the whole conversation becomes too chatty. Rockland Trust shared 2 weeks ago in our user events that they had somebody come back and did 2 times in 9 months. So you know, quite a conversational volume is phenomenal from the bank's perspective, but it may be better to hyperlink Salesforce out of conversations. Now, you mentioned before, what happens if Lana leaves the organization? Let me show you that, and after I want to get into analytics, and I want to wrap it up because you're being incredibly kind with your time. But let's have a quick look here. You'll see I'm now Soren. I'm a manager. That means I can see my own conversation if I have any. If I oversee a team, I can see my team's conversation. Or if I'm to go back to the old Mel Gibson Master Blaster, if I'm in charge here, I can see all conversations, and I can of course go in and I can look for particular people. Did Soren have a conversation? I can go in and reactively search for particular things. I want to see, did anybody get tagged as being angry? Because I want to know this stuff. So I can, of course, reactively search for that. And I see 2 people got tagged as being angry. Anthony did. Why was that? Okay, he said, I'm angry. But you can use the topics, but you can set up phrase and terminologies that you want to get tagged because you want to reviews.
Well, I bet if you said like, this is ridiculous, that would also.
Exactly. That's exactly right. But searching reactively, that's fine. But remember I spoke about before, do you remember the little mortgage tag we saw before? What do we do with that? Well, let's go in and see what Soren can see under the metrics. So as you go to the metric dashboard, you get all the stuff you'll anticipate, right? Daily, weekly, monthly active, when are we busy, who talked to a bot, who talked to a human, who started the conversation, what is the heat map, and break it down to agents. You should expect this, right? And this is always evolving. Now, where it gets interesting for me is when we go to the Insights tab. The Insights tab, and I'm just going to grab a little more data. It's this demo platform. We want to look at Insights in 3 different tiers. You remember the menu 4, 6 options? What's my routing? Why I can't log in? Can I talk to a banker? We should be able to tell you anytime what happened in the last 3 days. What did people click on? So you should be able to see, are there any of these menu options that do not make sense? If they do not make sense, we paste them. Right? That's what we need to do. Or if there's something you think that's important but not going to get clicked, move it out. So we can get a view of what happened here. And routing number was a ridiculous 80%. But there was also about 11% here that said, I want to talk to a banker. 11 is too low. Generally, you will see, I'll see anywhere from, depending on the organization, 20 to 30% will generally escalate to a human. But what do they talk about when they talk to a human? Because suddenly we don't get that insight. But that's where the tagging gets involved. If we go in and look at the tagging, and you can select your own time period here, say I want to look at, why don't we just look at the last 2 weeks, sorry, because that's what's interesting.
it's cute to know what happened before that, but let's look at the last 2 weeks, see what did people talk about. Graduation is big, home purchase. You can see what are the topics that are trending, and you can go back and look at all the conversations, see what did members actually say. Remember when I spoke about Pinal doing their auto loan push? That's because of that. If you look at the case study, you see suddenly, I think they had a full document of the number of queries about.
That makes sense on how to push that out.
Sorry, is there, I have a question about the chat. Is there, a way to mark the conversation? Say if you have two representatives and you're kind of handing them off to someone that specializes in mortgages, and you want to go handle something else, just to kind of ear tag that.
Yeah, you basically, you hand off, but then invite a person to the conversation, and then I'll just,
Ignore it, really,
I
right?
would mark.
Like Teams.
Well, no, but if you, that's actually what I was.
Yeah.
Like, all right, no.
Yeah, but if he doesn't, I see what you're saying. If you say at sign John Best to get me to like get Laura back, is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about, so if there's two representatives in the chat. And say Lana's like, I'm gonna leave them to do their thing for a little bit and I'll come back. Just so she doesn't have to figure out and read through, all the way back and figure out where she left off.
Yeah.
There could have been like a whole scroll of
Okay.
conversation. If she could just jump to that section and say, this is where I'm leaving off, I'm gonna go over here for a minute.
Yeah.
And then she can go back to that one and click thing, take me back to where I left off.
Since we're running chronological, we use 3 different taggings in these conversations here. We use a gray message. A gray conversation means that you have read everything that's in here. There's nothing new for you. If there is a message in here that you have not read from either a colleague of yours or a member, you'll be highlighted in white. Now, the third thing is if a member has written a message and they have not received a response, that's when you get the little red timer on. And you can also go in and actually filter your conversation by unresponded. So you can go in and say, I want to look at only my unresponded conversations, for example. So the idea is that if I am Chris's relationship associate and I look after the relationship with Chris, if you talk to Chris about a mortgage, instead of me calling up and go, Chris, about what do you agree? And Chris, we talk to you. Instead of trying them, I get to read what you spoke about on both sides. So when I reach out to Chris, okay, good, sorry, I had a good conversation. So the idea is really to make sure that the relationship associate never gets out of the loop, and they never have to go to a back channel to find out what happened.
But I think what he's saying is, if one of those is undone, when you click on that link, it's going to take you to your first unread message. So it'll go back to where you started from.
Yeah.
But
correct.
here's the other thing that you made me think about. Can I call Lana back? Like if I'm doing what she said, which I do that, you guys start talking, I'm like, okay, good. They look like they're working in my part. I'll go back to what I was doing. Back to watching YouTube. But if I put in, but if they want to get my attention, a lot of times I'll get a at John Best, and then that'll.
Yeah.
So is there a way to get Lana back into the conversation if she's out there, like to like, okay, I'm done. I'll get you back to Lana now.
Yeah, I mean, you can, if you want to do that, you can always just hand it off. The simplest way would be to say, that's really great. So I'm happy I'm able to help Matt. And now I'm going to leave the conversation. So Matt leaves the conversation and Lana gets notified that Matt left.
Okay, so if you leave, that does it. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
I wanted to show you one more thing on the metrics here. So we spoke about what selections. We spoke about tags. So tags don't have an understanding and implication that we had some idea what people are going to talk about. We saw the tagging down there. The last thing we want to look at is where this thing of clustering. Natural language processing clustering, right? I trust many of you know much more about that than me. No, Sam certainly does. But just looking at the full universe of all conversations to see, are there any phrases and terminologies that are used frequently? And if so, what are they? And we have we don't have any preconceived notion, but we basically look for hotspots across the conversations. We'll pull up what were the topics that members asked about that we have not been tagging, that we didn't do anything with. What are examples and what are examples of what the members actually said? So what we wanted to show is the idea. We go from the fully structured, what did they click on, to when they didn't click, when they spoke to a human, what did it talk about? What are we tagging? And then what is the white space that we don't know about? And you can imagine, I live in the Bay Area. You can imagine earlier this year what the big topic was, right?
Silicon Valley Bank.
Driverless cars. So.
Happy bank, now driverless car, yes. But getting that insight and go back, we when we started working with Stanford Federal Credit, one of the things that actually pushed them to implement faster was that we spent the last 3 weeks calling all our members. There are about 8,000 members, 4 billion in assets. But we spent the last 3 weeks calling all our members because Silicon Valley is just across the street. And anybody in the neighborhood are terrified. So imagine if we had a better way of reaching out and saying, hey, a lot of people are talking about the Silicon Valley Bank. I wanted to give you an update on why you're sick. The last thing that I'll try to be quiet then. You asked about what happens when Lana leaves. Because if you think about it, it's enormous power we are giving him. We do find that associates that do this kind of work tend to get very excited about it because it is why they started in banking. I now don't, I have my book of business. I have my 1,000 or 2,000 members that I look after. It's really easy to measure me. How happy are they? So we do have NPS and CSAT integrated into the platform, so you can survey members if you want to. And of course, you do that by channel, web chat, all that authenticated. But you can now measure how good is Lana, how much you like it, what's Lana's turnover, what is Lana's upsell cross-sell resolution. So people, the associates tend to like this. But let's imagine I'm now Lana's manager, and Lana won the lottery and decided that Hawaii sounds good. So she's going to be out of the office indefinitely. I can now go in and look at my users of the platform. I see Lana. I see what her role is. When was the last time she logged in? Is she available? Oh, she should be available. We should probably set her to be marked as away now. So we set her to being away. Look, how many primary customers or primary members does she have? I can now click on all of this. I can grab them, and I can then do a couple of different things. I can either assign them to a new associate. The new associate will get all past conversations, all notes, etc., etc. So when we have to hand off, if I have to hand off Chris, that is probably a risk. If Chris is used to working with Ed, and Ed leaves, that's where Chris will go, is it worth starting over, or should I change my organization? Should I go to another financial, should I go to another credit team? Whereas if I get that conversation going, oh, hey, Chris, I always spoke to Ed about it. If you don't drop the ball on that, if you actually give the next relationship manager the ability to see everything that happened in the past, you just continue the conversation. We think that's really, really fair.
It's like you could transfer the trust. And, you know, it's funny because like you would get to the point where you could go to the teller. And if that teller wasn't there that day, you might have some like, oh, but, you know, I've always seen Betty here and I know she knows Arvis. I feel like that would be the next place to go. And there's a transfer of trust there that comes with the handoff. That warm handoff, I think, is a very interesting thing to do digitally that I hadn't thought about in that way, but I really like it.
I think that that would be easier to pair them with a representative that would be similar to Lana as well. So
Exactly.
Well, and this is, go ahead, sorry.
If you want to throw up your hands, see, there's an option here. And when I update the primary agent, I can just remove Lana. What will actually happen next time the member logs in or access the service, the platform will realize that Matt doesn't have a primary relationship owner, so we'll service the carousel again. So it's really up to you what you want the journey to be. Do you want a message to come from me and say, I'm really sorry, Lana won a lottery, good for her, bad for us. Now, I'm going to ask John to look after you and hand it off. Or, you know what, why don't you select a relationship manager you would like to, your second favorite, and we can go the carousel again.
And is that another one where, like you say, when I give them a choice, you recommend this person, but if you'd rather.
Yeah. I would say with the whole selection, it is configurable. Rock and Frost have got it all kind of. Their web chat is managed by the contact center. Within the authenticated space, they have relationship bankers for regular resale customers. They have a separate group for VIPs. And for business customers, we never want to serve a carousel for business customer. Because that is more higher value. So we actually query Salesforce. Whenever a business customer comes in, we get the customer segment. We query Salesforce, who is John's relationship manager? And we automatically pair John with the relationship manager that he's used to working with. So you avoid that experience of, well, I've been working with you for 5 years. Why do you ask that? A lot.
Um,
Our weight.
so Soren, pardon me, does anybody have any more questions? Sorry, because I was going to tag on a little bit of some of Matt and I's. Does anybody have any more?
PBX so that you can pick up a number and pull this up on the screen. So,
Sorry.
do you integrate to a PBX so that you can pop this on that agent's screen if somebody calls them?
I would say we do it with there's what is mostly about the is if we get a signal from a customer solution for something that Lana is busy right now, we can take that in the to say this he's not available right now, so checks will not be routed.
So I think he's saying not PBX, but the call center, the ACD group or whatever it is that's being used.
Honestly, we're not done with it. I mean, as I said, we just had our user event last week, 2 weeks ago in Denver. We did 21 releases last week, the last 12 months, 170 features, 80 of them are being created by our partners. But it's just,
And Mark only uses fraud so that when they try somebody else, I will.
Absolutely. So you can go in. I showed you the auto tagging before, but of course I can also go in here and just say that, let me grab Matt here. I can go in and essentially do a conversation. I can add any kind of tag I want here. For example, this is Matt is a angry customer or fraudster or whatever I want to add. I can add that to the conversation. That's persisted and presented to anybody else who gets that.
Or maybe it's had previous fraud on the account. To your point. Yeah.
So I know this is a bad in your chats. I know this is a con I've been throwing at you, but if we can take a step back, what is fundamentally we've been trying to do? A lot of technology around just figuring out how do we get back to maybe on talking. How do we use AI in a relatively low risk way that gives you a line of sight to scalability, right? And how do we use AI not just to create generative AI, to limit that a bit, because honestly, if I ask Ed, how do I deposit a check? We don't need ChatGPT to give you the answer. It already knows. It's written down on a standard procedure in the credit union. Why wouldn't we use that instead? So everything we have been talking about today is basically about making it as frictionless as possible for your members to talk to you instead of going to Google, instead of going to ask their friends on Facebook. That's fundamentally what it is. There's a lot of tech behind it, but at the end of the day, that's what this is about.
Well, and so how does this sort of meet my criteria? So the first thing I asked was, okay, am I going to need more FTEs? And that's not been the experience. What's happening is because of the assist and because of the familiarity, actually it's making it so that more people can deal with more, or one customer can deal with, you said up to 8 in terms of the multitasking at a time. Whereas before you could only talk out of your mouth unless you're at the drive-thru. Somehow they do that, but out of your mouth to one person. So this increases that context. But what's interesting about me was we talked about the generative AI. So you're seeing the AI intervene where it's tagging things, where it's picking up that it's a mortgage, where it's making the suggestions. What I think you showed us a little of an early point is the actual AI being a talking element that only this person could see within this conversation. So a third person that is a generative AI that is now assisting as the buddy as we go along. So I thought that was interesting. The other thing that I'm going to make a bold prediction, it just kind of came to me. This is what I do here sometimes. It's just bold predictions. But I think all marketing materials, like you saw the mortgage thing that he pulled up, when we think of the word generative and we're at this point, we're now able to make 10 minutes of video with AI. We're able to make full songs with AI. We're able to make art. I think it's just a matter of time before we start pre-generating or doing generative AI on these marketing materials, where those are generated on the fly, and they're customized as that person based on what they are. So I think that's an interesting aspect of this, that this would be pre-wired for, is the ability to go, all right, let's go ahead and get that, but they could just generate what I'm going to call just-in-time marketing. I think I'll coin it for that. But this idea that
And that marketing, to your point, if it's an older person, we should know the demographic can be adjusted for that. And even if you just broke it down to different documents, different strokes for different folks, but I think you could go a step further. You may know, more about them because of their book of business. And I think that's the other piece of this that we talked to Matt and Soren about is the penetration that Stanford was seeing because of this, the cross sell and having that time to call. So they were seeing products per member go up, which I thought was a really interesting piece of it because we struggled to, especially with the indirect, where I think this could be a valuable channel to look at indirect and point people, disperse those indirects directly to someone as opposed to just sort of broadbanding them and trying to get them to talk to us. So I see a lot of other use cases. I thought it was pretty bad, and you have an API and they have an SDK upcoming that allow us to put into this, which I thought was good. And we talked about not using their AI, and they also see the same thing we saw, that you may want to use your own model or connectivity, or you may want to use, as you pointed out, Kevin, different ones for different things. The mortgage AI for one thing, yeah.
And also, you may have seen that recently. So we realized that we think what we're pretty smart, right? But if you spend the last 2 years doing it on post, telling you that why don't you take anything in AI, you didn't flush it, that doesn't make sense. But one of the benefits we have is that Sam spent 12 years at Google, which means that first he can't understand. Tell him that people may not have APIs for everything, he can't comprehend that. But he's very much with the view that you should be integratable and whatever you want to use from any one. So for example, if you say, well, we don't really like use virtual assistants. We like the tagging, we like the analytics, but we want to use Plus AI and backend. Use it. So it's really
Or interface AI.
Exactly. Whatever the platform is, it's really again, it needs to fit your environment. You just showing up and saying that we are everything for everybody. It's the tools and that. But old enough to realize that we're not.
And he's gonna hang out with us the rest of the time here,
So
so.
okay with it, but didn't overstay my welcome.
But we vote, everybody, in favor of Soren leaving? Oh, wait, I mean, in favor of Soren staying?
Now a secret vote.
Okay, secret vote.